we are so thankful that he was able to take some time from his busy schedule to join us here once again, Attorney General Gurbir Grewal.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Pride to everyone here this afternoon. I want to thank Holly and the Mayor for the invitation to speak. I didn't really have a good excuse to say no. It was only a 2-minute walk over here, and it got me out of doing some housework this afternoon. I want to really pick up where the Mayor left off with the young people and the teachers who are here this afternoon. I want to thank the activism I want to recognize rather the activism of our young people, because in a difficult moment they are truly showing us the way on how we could create a more diverse and inclusive society, and they are really our true heroes in this difficult moment, so I want to give them a round of applause. And I also want to thank all of the allies who are here working to promote diversity and inclusion here in Glen Rock. Your work is incredible, and it is an honor to not just be the Attorney General of this state, but also a resident of this great town. You know, we're gathering this afternoon for a flag raising, and we're gathering to launch Pride Month across the country. And it's an opportunity for us to reflect on all the progress that we have made as a country and as a state, as was alluded to earlier, in advancing LGBTQ rights. But I think it's also an opportunity and a moment for us to reflect. And I think we have to take this as a moment or a chance to say collectively that we are not going to get complacent, that we are going to remain vigilant. Because as the young people talked about just a moment ago, this is a very difficult moment. We have elected leaders in some of the highest offices in this country who are now promoting a rhetoric and a discourse that's openly questioning the patriotism and the loyalty of our fellow Americans because of what they look like, what they believe, and who they love. And it's even more than rhetoric, because what we are seeing coming out of Washington in this difficult moment are also policies. There is an unprecedented attack on rights that we thought were well established and well guarded. There is an unprecedented attack on the rights of women in this moment. There's an unprecedented attack on the rights of the LGBTQ community in this moment. There is an unprecedented attack on the rights of immigrants in this moment. There's simply an unprecedented attack on our civil rights and our rule of law in this moment. And should we act surprised that against this backdrop, we are seeing such a rise in acts of bias and hate all across the country, to include in New Jersey? Should we act surprised that we saw a 20% increase between 2016 and 2017 in bias crimes in this country? 7,100 reported offenses, including 1,200 directed at individuals because of their gender identity or sexual orientation. The question then becomes, what do we do about it? What do we do in this moment? How do we respond? And I think it starts with moments like this one, what we're doing right here in Glen Rock, coming together as a community, coming together and showing others that in this state, in this county, in this town, that we truly, truly treat an act of bias or hate against any one of us as an act of bias and hate against all of us. And for those of us in positions of authority to our elected officials, I think it's also incumbent on us to use our powers to really hold the line. While things might be going sideways in Washington, while the federal government might be assaulting our rights, we have an opportunity here in New Jersey to stand up and to be a model for the rest of the country of what it looks like when people come together to push forward good and responsible policies. And our legislators are doing that. They are standing up for us. Our governor, if the federal government is going to make it difficult for transgender soldiers to fight, our governor has said that trans soldiers are welcome in the New Jersey National Guard. We also gathered today, this month, to recognize the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. And we celebrate those riots because it was a moment when community came together to stand up and speak out against an unjust government, against police brutality, against the gay community in New York. And we can't forget that history. And thanks to our legislators, we won't. Our curriculums across the state will now include LGBTQ community history, and I think that is terribly important right now. And our elected officials are doing incredible work in so many other ways. For me, as your Chief Law Enforcement Officer, we're doing our part as well. At the Attorney General's office, we have rededicated and redoubled our efforts to investigating and prosecuting bias offenses. We have updated for the first time in over a decade the bias crimes guidelines that our law enforcement use across the state to reflect what's going on right now in this particular moment. And more than that, you know, the Attorney General's office touches a lot of different departments, and a lot of different powers rest in the Attorney General's office. I also oversee our state's Division on Civil Rights. And we have one of the strongest anti-discrimination laws in this country, the law against discrimination. But it is only as strong as those of us who use it and how we use it. And so we've rededicated our efforts at the Division on Civil Rights to really be a leader in this moment. If the federal government will push back and pull back regulations, we'll put forward new regulations and guidance. And we're working on giving protections to our trans young people in places of public accommodation in schools, so they can go to school knowing that they'll be safe and that they'll be accepted and that they'll be protected by those of us in authority. And I really wish I could spend my day just building a model here in New Jersey, but so much of my day is responding to what's coming out of Washington. And we are doing that. Now, if the president is going to make it difficult for trans soldiers to serve, well, we're fighting him in court on that. If the president's going to roll back protections from workplace discrimination and not include gender identity, we're fighting back and pushing back in that regard as well. If there's going to be arguments in the Supreme Court where businesses are trying to use religious reasons and other grounds to engage in discriminatory conduct, we're part of those cases. That's our obligation, because that's what we owe to our communities, that's what we owe to the next generation of young people coming up, and that's what we need to do to make sure every one of us can thrive here, regardless of how we worship, what we look like, or who we love. I want to thank the mayor for having me. I want to thank Howard for having me here this afternoon. Happy Pride.